Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile build guide video. In this one, we're going to show you the Spellslinger, Flamewall, Ignite, Kinetic Blast. Okay, there's so many things used in this build. It's an Ignite Elementalist Spellslinger build. Okay. The gameplay footage that my editor Kikis will be editing into the video is done in sort of a medium budget end. It is an elementalist, and we've just killed A8 Conquerors and A8 Series during leveling. We ended up being 89 when we killed Awakener himself. And basically the idea of the build is to use Kinetic Blast, which we are linking with faster attacks, combustion, and GMP. And the idea for this is to make sure that we have fire damage on our Kinetic Blast so that we can apply combustion to give enemies ignited by this less fire resistances. And this is something we're going to be going back to quite often with this build, because we're going to scale a lot of penetration values of dropping enemies resistances so that we can further scale the damage output of this build. The way it's played is that we're casting Kinetic Blast, which will trigger Flame Wall, and the projectiles will go through the Flame Wall and then do the Ignite portion of the damage from there. There are two different ways to scale the clear speed with this build. One is to use an exploded chest piece, or if you want to be cheaper on the early stage of a league, you can purchase an Impulsa. This is again for the medium budget. Without this, you'll have to basically use Chain instead of the faster attacks in your Kinetic Blast to make it function before you get the explosions, which is dealt through Impulsa thanks to the Ascendancy tree, which I'll talk about in a bit. So basically, you just run around and you use Flame Dash because the build's not very fast, but it is very comfortable and it's very beautiful explosions on the screen. So we use the Quicksilver Flask and Flame Dash as we're moving around. We have some triggers for even lower enemy fire resistance, such as Wave of Conviction. We're also using some Purifying Flame and Tempest Shield for triggers to get some more defensive out of it and regions. It's really, really comfortable in that sense, and I'll basically be going through the skill gems that we're using. So first off, Kinetic Blast, faster attacks, combustion, and GMP. For low budget, before you get an exploded chest, remove the fast attacks and use chain support instead. This will allow you to do pretty good clearing with your Kinetic Blast explosions. The trigger wand should have +1 level of fire or +1 level of all spell skills with a trigger. And for higher budget, you want to have both of them with a trigger. And if you can get in fire damage multi or spell damage, that's always good. But the main portion here is to get the +2 with the trigger. But for low budget, just to get one of them with a trigger craft. And in here, we're using Wave of Conviction, Purifying Flames, and Tempest Shield to give some extra defense layers, but also less resistance on enemies. The shield, I'm using a Second Wind Flame Dash Arcane Surge, level 5, because we're dropping some mana cost here, which I'll talk about in a bit. The shield should have +1 level of all fire skills, or +1 level of spell skills, preferably some life and then some resistances. Crit doesn't really matter. It is important that you get 100% hit chance with the Kinetic Blast, so anything that gives you accuracy would always be good. For example, on the helmets, you can get accuracy rolls, you can get them on a few other pieces and from the tree. So you want to make sure you have a 100% chance to hit with the Kinetic Blast, so that the ignitions will actually happen. The helmet itself is only a generic helmet with life and resistances. It does have the enchant Spellslinger have reduced mana reserved. This will allow you to have a higher level precision aura. If you don't have the enchant, then you just have to go with a lower level precision aura, and that's about it. That's the only difference. The amulet is a primordial chain. They're not very expensive at all. You can then anoint whichever you want in here, to be honest. I went with Charisma for the sake of the reservation, which is why we have so much mana. However, the Charisma is able to be removed, also thanks to the enchant. And then you can instead go for something like Growth and Decay for even more damage, which I would strongly recommend over the one I have, which is over here. This gives you damage over time and damage over time multiplier, as well as an extra life regen. The gloves is the only thing that's very expensive in this piece. The gloves were going for spell damage and fire damage over time multi if you can. The links in here is Golem, Chaos Golem, Flame Golem, Minion Life, and Ice Golem. And since we're going to be able to use 7 golems with this build, we use 2 of the ones that gives us buff that are very important. In this case, it's the Flame, Chaos, and Stone Golem, and we only use 1 Ice Golem mainly for the extra accuracy that we're getting. The Stone Golem is not linked in this. It's actually linked in Malachai's Artifice, and I'll talk about that in a bit as well. Boots we're using is Venomous Spinnerets. It's the Venomous Boots, which gives us energy shield for each enemy hit which is affected by the Spider's Web. This is one of the ways we are sustaining our energy shield defensive pool. And we're using Steel Skin, Enduring Cry, Herald of Ash, and Precision in here. And that's about it. So that's the gems we're using for this build. Now, if you want to be lazy like I am, you can weapon swap and use a portal in a trigger weapon to trigger up a portal, but that's just comfortable stuff. The belt is where I put the aspect of the spider, just generic life and resistances. The ring, I have life, resistances, and a flammability on hit. Again, if you have a lower budget, you just skip the curse on it. I did take the non-channeling skills have less mana cost because it does help the mana a little bit. You don't have to spam versus bosses, but it's comfortable to be able to spam, which is what this and the craft can help with, but it's not mandatory. The chest piece is an impulsor, like I mentioned. For higher budget, you can go with the exploded chest piece. The problem is that you want to have 4 blue colors in here, and preferably if you want to go with exploded chest piece, you can go for other modifiers to it as well, like extra curses and whatnot. It completely depends on what you want to go for. But impulsor is very nice, gives you HP, also increases damage if you shocked an enemy recently, and it gives you the explosions that you want, and you are unaffected by shock as well. The links for the Flamewall is a Flamewall with Spellslinger to make it reserve mana. In this case, it's 38%. And then we have Elemental Focus. We have Awaken Burning Damage support. We also have an Efficacy as well as Swift Affliction. So that's the gems we're going to use. And all of this will be in the PUB linked in the descriptions below, of course. So the reason we're using Malachi's Artifice with the Stone Golem is so that we can use Elemental Equilibrium. Since we are going to use fire damage at all times, we cannot spec Elemental Equilibrium, because if we spec Elemental Equilibrium, all our hits will give enemies increased fire resistance. Minions don't proc Elemental Equilibrium, but if you have Malachi's Artifice, you can put a minion in there, and that minion will proc Elemental Equilibrium because the ring itself gives the keystone to the gem. And the way we trigger this is by using a jewel that gives minions either lightning or cold damage, and this way the Stone Golems themselves will actually trigger Elemental Equilibrium for us, dropping enemies' resistances by 50%. And that's one of the ways we're abusing this little mechanic, and we get a lot of fire rest because of the Malachi's Artifice. So one jewel will have to be a jewel that gives us plus to this. This build does starve a little bit when it comes to attributes. When we're looking at the skill tree, we have actually spec plus 30 dexterity here, plus intelligence and dexterity over here. So that's kind of crucial to go for. This is, again, the medium budget build. The low budget build guide in the description below will not have any cluster jewels and will not use Thread of Hope, and won't use a timeless jewel like this either. So the way we spec it is to go out of this area and go into the Arcanist Dominion, and then we're actually going to pick up Practical Application, mainly because we're getting Strength and Dexterity, because we're actually having Unwavering Stance. We're actually unable to be stunned, which these are helping us avoid when we're casting. But since we're never casting and we're never going to get stunned anyways, these are only for the attributes. Life and mana, we go out, we pick up the Mind Over Matter. This is only if we're playing with this version, which we're going to have a Glorious Vanity of Doriani, making this a Corrupted Soul, which means that we get some extra energy shields, because the build is going to live on both having life and energy shield as defense. It's not a very super tanky build, and the playstyle, I'll talk about that in a bit. We go up for Dexterity, Elemental Overload, pick up the Arcane Guarding, and then we go through the Life Node to move up to Breath of Flames. Now, I haven't taken Breath of Flames yet with this build, because I'm only level 89, so the next point I would spec into more damage. Instead, we're going for Golem Commander and putting an Intuitive Leap Jewel. This will allow us to get the Discord Artisan, which increases the effect of Heralds, but also increases damage for each Herald affecting you, and a reduced mana reservation of our Herald skills. And we're also able to get Mystic Bulwark for the block to spell damage and Particle Perfection for more damage. The cluster jewels for this version is going to be one up here with the elemental damage. We're going to pick up the Holy Fire, Life and Chaos Rest, and then we're going to move down to get a Thread of Hope large ring, so we don't have to take this small node, but we can get the Reservation nodes, as well as the 3 life nodes on the side, as well as the Sanctuary node again for block and resistances. Then can pick up HP, another cluster set, more HP, attributes, fire damage, unwavering stance, and then go for glancing blows to have even better defensive layers. The cluster jewels are all identical. The large clusters, both large clusters have 2 nodes. One of them is Burning Bright, which is the node we actually do want to pick up. There are 8 passives. And the other one is Cremator or Smoke and Remains. You can double check this in PUB to make sure that the Burning Bright is the one that's located on any of these 2 spots, so that we can actually pick it up, and skipping the Smoke and Remains or Cremator so that we can go into the jewel slots instead. The medium clusters are 4 or 5 passives, fire damage over time multiplier, and we're going for Vile Reinvigoration, damage over time, increased energy shield, A regen of energy shield if you kill an enemy, again to help us sustain. Exposure therapy gives us chaos resistance against damage over time, which is whatever, but it gives you 10% damage over time multiplier. And then we just have a generic jewel with some life and fire damage and fire whatever you can get. Doesn't really matter. This is a terrible jewel for this version. Try to keep the budget down a bit. The other one is again exposure therapy, and this time we went with Burning Bright. We're only using 1 vial reinvigoration. Same thing here with the jewel, just some stats, fire damage and HP. And the other area is medium clusters. We're using Burning Bright and Cremator. This is increased fire damage. United enemies you hit are destroyed or killed. Doesn't really matter. But we're going for Burning Bright for the increased fire damage over time and increased fire damage. And the other portion, we have again a Burning Bright and a Circle of Oblivion, which gives us increased damage over time. So there's a couple of different medium clusters that will work for this build, and that's the way we've approached it. Ascendancy Nodes wise, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. Obviously, we're going to rush into the Elemancer. This allows us to summon our golems that we have. For example, my 2 stone, 2 chaos, 2 fire, 1 ice golem. If they die, they will be automatically resummoned, so I never have to worry about them, which is really, really, really comfortable when it comes to these nodes. We're also going to pick up Bastion of Elements, which gives us the increased defensive layer of the level 20 Primal Aegis for elemental damage. And we're also picking up Shaper of Storms. Now, you could go for the Mastermind of Discord, which is a teeny tiny bit more damage, but Shaper of Storms allows you to have all your hits always shocking with a minimum of 15% increased damage dealt, which is similar to Skitterbots. But Shaper of Storms allows us to use Impulsa. So you can do this till you're able to upgrade to an exploded chess piece, upon which you can change this into the Mastermind of Discord if you want to do more damage. But Shaper Storm is really nice, allows you to use Impulsa, and it's a really good damage. But yes, Chris saying in the chat, the Burning Bright is the best damage providing cluster jewel you can go for when it comes to the medium clusters. So if that's what you want to push for, then go for that. And that's basically the tree and the skill gems for this build. I'm going to show you one quick map as I talk about the specific mechanic. The way you want to play to stay safe is very straightforward. You want to make sure that you shoot off screen with it, because the build is not super tanky, even if it has a lot of defensive layers. So when I'm playing, I want to shoot before I move somewhere. So we're going to move down here, and I'm basically just shooting at the same time as I'm moving down. So it should be very few, or any monsters at all shouldn't exist as I move into the point where there are enemies. And to scale up my clear speed, I'll use Flame Dash. So the thing is, the build's not super tanky, but this way I will already clear off most enemies before I even see them on the screen. And that's a very comfortable way to play the game. And just keep the flask up. And it's a very nice way to play the game. And it's very easy to handle Serious and Conquerors with this build. Since it's not a dot build, doesn't have the burst to one-shot them, which I guess you can make happen if you have enough currency invested. So as you can see, the bosses will take a little bit of time, which I'm going to show you here. So we do the same thing here. We shoot just to kill them, and then we have the boss, and this is where we have to actually start dodging the mechanics, and then the dots will kill it. And this way, we're pretty much never taking any damage outside of rare occasions. And that's basically how you want to play the build. You do this guy has some AoE stuff. Make sure you get the endurance charges up, and die from the dots, and we just keep moving. But it's all about just shooting before you move into the pack, and everything will pretty much be dead where you're going. And to scare up the clear speed, you just use Flame Dash to move faster. It's very comfortable and nice explosions happening. It's a cool build. It's a cool build. It's not very expensive to get going either. It's pretty cool. Leveling this build is also very smooth. You can level with Spellslinger, you can level with SRS if you like doing that. Since it's a witch, there's so many different ways you can level this build. And I will be typing up a written version for this guide, which will be linked in the descriptions below as soon as I'm done with it, after uploading this on YouTube. But yeah, this is the build. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, let me know in the comments below. And if you played any similar builds like this, let me know as well, because I would love to see some other POVs of other approaches to this build. And this is just my take of the build, and I've been having a lot of fun with it, and it's been working out pretty well. And that's all I got for you. Anyways, hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and till next time, stay safe, keep rocking.